Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Good, Bad, and Ugly of Business. I'm your host, Catryn Becker. In this podcast, we love to interview people from all different walks of life, from different industries, professions, all different levels of success, because we want to learn what they have learned in their career that has made them so successful. Because while a smart person learns from their mistakes, a genius learns from the mistakes of others. And we want to learn what they've learned so that we can either avoid the mistakes completely or so that we can fail faster. My guest today is an incredible woman out of Canada, and she's really great at helping people to redefine their relationship with money and rethink how they think about it and how they interact with it. So as a financial advisor, she's really able to help you not only grow your wealth in that capacity, but also to change your money mindset, which is something that we could all utilize. So Kalee Boisvert, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
I think this is just such an important topic, and it's such a complicated history that we have with money. I think everyone's probably heard the phrase that money is the root of all evil, which, oh man, the damage that one phrase has caused. Tell us a little bit more about how you got into this and what are the services that you offer.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. I like that note about failing faster. You're right. We can learn so much from each other. There was a lot of failure falling down on my journey, but yeah. So a bit about my background or where it all started is, I was raised by a single mom, and it was myself, my sister, and she really struggled with finances and money because she just, didn't have like great earnings potential at the time. So she had us at a time where she hadn't gone to post-secondary education. So a lot of the jobs she held were kind of minimum wage jobs. So she worked really hard, yes, but she just wasn't earning a lot. And then being the only like income earner in the household, she was responsible for everything. And so I learned really early on, like that idea of money from a source of like, scarcity and never having enough and the stress that it can play in a family in those scenarios. So that was sort of how I grew up. And then, with that experience though, I was very intrigued because I saw our, situation where we didn't have a lot. But what I noticed from people around me, like my friends and whatnot, is, well, they had the things that I wanted. And, they seemed to not be plagued by that same scarcity and lack. So, as like the observant introvert or self, I wanted to figure it out. Like it felt like a math problem, and I really loved math. So I thought like this money stuff, if I can figure it out, I can fix it. And so I just became like a student of all things money and numbers and investing. And I just kept wanting to learn more and more and more on my journey as I grew up. And so I, continued on that path. I did my post-secondary education in finance related, like specified in finance or focused on finance. And out like from that, I went into the financial industry. And right off the bat, I was working on a team with other male advisors. And unfortunately, I wasn't getting to really like lean into what I wanted to do. And that related to supporting women in their financial lives. From, what I witnessed growing up with my mom, I thought, I want to help women so that doesn't have to happen. So no woman has to go through what my mom went through. And, what I was seeing from this male advisor team I was on, it was like, well, women weren't really involved in the conversations. They didn't, have a lot of female clients, or they were mostly talking to the husband if it was a husband wife. And so I was like, well, this sucks. Like I had based my whole mission on I want to help women, and the message I was getting was, women aren't interested, they don't care about this stuff. And I took it just as it is, because you're new in the work world and you just sort of taking everything as it comes. And so I thought, oh, well, that's the reality. Okay. But then, years later, I went on my mat leave to have my daughter, and I was a single mom pretty much right off the bat. So going back to work, it, really clicked for me of like, okay, I'm going back to work. I'm leaving my daughter. I really have to do the thing I set out to do. Like I said, I was going to support women. I need to test that theory again, see if women are indeed interested. So I sort of dove right in, started on my own from scratch, my own advisory business, because I knew I couldn't really create that where I was at the time on that team. So yeah, started from scratch, didn't have a single client and was raising a daughter. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to, earn some money to put a roof over our head too. And so I just really leaned into it though. I said, this is what I set out to do, support women in their financial lives, to feel more confident, to want to talk these conversations about money and investing. And so I started hosting in-person events for just women on different money topics. So like, I think the first one was like investing 101. And I was in like a downtown office tower at the time. And so I just cold called like all the other businesses in our building. And then I called, the businesses next to us because I figured it was a lunch event. So the people that are going to come have to be close by. And I just told them, I'm hosting this event for just women about investing. I'd love for you to share this invite in case some of your, colleagues are interested. And then I nervously waited and, noon arrived and women showed up and a lot of women came. And so I was like, this is amazing. Like it was that moment I was giddy inside, like it worked and women are interested. So I just continued to do these sessions on a monthly basis. And again, it just kept growing. More women would tell other women about it. And then COVID hit and, it caused us to kind of go within and go literally indoors. And for my business, that was tough because I was, building this network and doing these events in person. And that's when I took them. I realized I had to keep them going. So I took them online. But by doing that, I realized the power of like how you can reach an even wider audience. And that's when I got the idea to start writing my book. So that's during that time I wrote my book, Make Money Your Thing, which is out now. And it's all about building confidence in women around their finances. So it was sort of combination of what I learned throughout the years and then being on my own for several years by that time. All in one book. It was sort of like, what is, everything I would want women to know about finances, and thinking, okay, when my daughter is older, what would I want to give her as like, this is the guidebook, this is what you need to read to figure this out and to feel good and inspired. And so that's what I did. I wrote the book and it's been amazing because it feels like now I can serve a wider audience. When you have your own thing and you're working with your specific clients and you're in your city and things like that, you feel like you're a bit like location dependent or whatever it is. I think we've learned, through the years that actually, well, we can serve a larger audience. But yeah, with the book, it just feels like I can impact even more people and people, women of all ages. And it's maybe a less intimidating form of going to an event where, again, women might still feel a little bit hesitant or nervous to go to, that they can, pick up this book in the privacy of their home and yeah, feel welcome and part of this conversation.
So what I was thinking about while you were talking, like I'm having this kind of like side conversation in myself in my head while you were speaking is, why are women like this? And like, can men even relate to this? And then it occurred to me that like women couldn't have their own credit cards until like recent history. Like, what was it like in the 60s or 70s?
Yes.
That women could not apply for their credit card on their own.
Yes.
Which that's bananas.
Oh, it's crazy.
It's bananas. So, I mean, and then thinking like, okay, yeah. And you take that back even further in America, women have only had the vote for 100 years.
Yeah.
Where we've only had a voice. And so you think about how fast the world has changed in that time. It's no wonder that we still have hangups and are like, don't know the same amount of information that men do because they've had much more experience with it generationally than women have.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's very new on the spectrum of like when you look at history. When I was running my podcast, I had a podcast for a while. I stopped when I had my son. I just had too much going on, single mom life. But I had a woman on who studied like ancient like cultures and things like that. And there was like basically never a time where women, where it was reversed. This is like literally, if you go back and study, societies and things like that, even when women were kind of used as like figureheads in certain places around the world and whatnot that she found, they still weren't given the like ability to make decisions. So it's almost like sometimes they were placed in these positions of power, but they didn't get to actually make decisions. So you're right. This is new on the whole like time spectrum of when we've been able to make decisions, have control over our decisions. And yeah, it's crazy to think that yeah, just like grandparents or whatnot, it was different for them. Like that's so new. So if as a woman you feel like this is overwhelming and I don't feel like I belong, well, that's why. Like, of
There's
course
good
you would feel
reason.
that way. Yeah. Don't be hard on yourself. Be like, okay, I get why I don't feel like I belong. That makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, when we're thinking about like our mothers or grandmothers were the only, like the first in our line to be able to have some sort of control over their own money.
Absolutely.
It's mind boggling. And then I think, well, okay, yes, that's true, but that's also been 60, 70 years, right? Like in time frame of when this has happened. So that makes me think, why haven't we changed? And why isn't this taught in school?
Yeah, those are great questions. Like the financial literacy question. We aren't taught this in school. I talk about this in the book. For if you feel like I called it make money your thing because unfortunately women are really good at saying things like, I'm not good with math. I'm not good with numbers. Money isn't my thing. So it was like, okay,
Yeah.
let's make it your thing. Let's change that mindset. But again, with good reason, because we go through school and our formal education, you might have received zero formal like classes or courses or even like little like sessions about
Not even
money
like
and
a mention in one class ever.
no. So that's really tough. And that you're right, though, that would that would affect men and women. So I think women too, it's just this it's like an imposter syndrome that creeps in. And it's unfortunate that we have that for some reason more than men. It seems like for us, it's a little bit more of a struggle where we don't have as much confidence for some reason. Like men are more willing to just dive in and figure it out, sometimes kind of like fake it or pretend, yeah, I got this. Because I don't think there's anything innately different between men and women. I've worked with men and women clients. I don't see or like I wouldn't say men know way more than women. Honestly, they're on like very equal footing. So it's like women, it's like our own self-belief. So we need to work on that. And that I think holds some of the answers as to why this is taking so long, or we're kind of behind it. Like you're right, it hasn't been long, but it's like we have to quickly catch up because women are financially independent. I am a single mom. I have to be responsible for the finances of my household. I don't rely on someone else. I don't have a male partner. And I've never been of the belief where I have to, if I want to reach certain money goals, I've never in my life, and maybe this was because of how I was raised, but I never thought or defaulted to like, well, I'm going to have to find, a husband that's really capable of being rich and making lots of money. Never. Like it was always, these are the things I want. And so I'm going to have to go after them.
Yeah. There's no like dowry from daddy to enter the relationship with, right?
No, absolutely.
Oh my goodness. Well, for the male listeners out there, just, stick with us. Just
Yeah.
welcome to a little bit more understanding of what your, wife, girlfriend, sister, mother, coworker may be going through, because there is benefit in learning kind of what the history is, because you're right. I think in today's society, we don't always see the differences. So to have the kind of historical perspective of like, oh yeah, remember that was the thing.
Yeah.
It
Oh,
is
yeah.
is really, really helpful. And you mentioned your one book, but I really want to talk about your second book, because I think this is absolutely brilliant. And I applaud you left, right, all the way to Sunday, whatever the phrases are. You've written a book called Money Wise Mabel. And right now there's just one, and it's what's busting the bank. Is that the
Bursting bank. Yeah.
bursting
Money
bank?
Wise Mabel's bursting bank.
Right. And I can see a whole line about Money Wise Mabel and all the things that she does. But talk to us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah. So it's, definitely was inspired. So my daughter, when I first started writing it, she was 5 and she was also showing signs of being terrible with money, which I mean, if you were, I give her credit that probably no 5-year-old is great with money. Maybe there's a few out there and good on them. Absolutely. That's fabulous. But, by all means, it's not really her fault because the thing is, kids learn about money from us. Like it's a lesson or something they have to learn about. Like you're not born with these skills. You have to learn it. And so that's where I got the idea for this book, because I thought of like, well, how can we teach kids and how early? When I'm talking to people about their finances and in their financial life, some of the biggest regret I would say that people cite is that they wish they would have started earlier.
Sure.
So then, yes, all that mixed together, it was like, well, how early could you start? And then seeing my daughter at her age and, not knowing anything about money, I was like, like this is an interesting experiment. What about at her age? What if we can start teaching kids really early on about money? And so that's where the idea for Money Wise Mabel came. And it's just about that. Like it's a little girl, the character is. So it's kind of based on her and maybe partially based on myself as a child, learning about money. And she fills up her piggy bank and she's all excited. And she thinks she's just going to kind of, go spend it all on some candy or some silly, impulsive purchase. But then she tells her mom, and her mom's like, well, it doesn't have to burn a hole in your pocket. And then she further explains when Mabel asks, well, where does your money all go? She talks about, what a bank is and how she puts hers in a bank account, which is like even bigger than your piggy bank and can hold even more. And you can save up for bigger goals. And so it gets Mabel thinking and excited about the possibilities. And then she goes to the bank and learns a little bit of like the financial topics like compound interest and things like that, hopefully in a fun way. And so it's just, it's financial literacy for kids. Like you said, we don't get enough of it along the way. It's opening the line of communication to start talking about money with your kids. I think as parents, again, if we're talking about, especially as women, if we're feeling like ourselves not very confident on the topic of money, we might feel like, oh, what can I teach my kid, about money? Or I don't know enough. Well, of course you do. Like, I'm assuming, you've like maybe earned a paycheck or opened a bank account, or, these basics that you absolutely can share with your children. And it's huge knowledge because they're like little sponges ready to absorb
Yes.
whatever it is, right, that we have to share with them. So it's so fun. Like,
Well, I just
and when they're
envision all these
little,
little like 5-year-olds going around being like compounding interest.
yeah, exactly. It's so cute.
Cute.
And I've sent it out to a couple like clients. So I've gotten like direct feedback already about it. And they've said like after reading it, their kids are saying like, oh, one said their son's going to start saving up for his own snorkeling gear. And one was her daughter wanted to save up for an iPad. And then it's just, and that their kids want to read it over and over again. I was like, well, that is probably the best compliment because, kids are very discerning too on what they're going to spend their time on. They get bored really quickly, most of them. And so that made me feel so happy because I made, a money book actually fun and interesting, and the kids want to do over and over again. That's so fun.
Well, and I can almost see like a companion book for adults, because one of the things that I've worked with a lot of my clients is so much of just it's reframing, right? It's all about the mindset. It's all about how you think of things. And I feel like almost every single person has probably had their parents say to them when they were kids that they now say to their kids is, oh, I want to buy this candy. We don't have money for that. And that phrase is so detrimental because say the candy's, $2, whatever. You do have money for that. It's just you're choosing to not spend money on that. And so I think there's so much power in parents saying, oh, that's not a priority right now, or that's not in the budget, or, that's not a smart use of money at this time. Like there's so many other phrases that we can use to help kids start building those better money habits.
Yeah, like it's choices, and we're faced with money choices every day. I had the conversation with Ivy, like she was talking about wanting this and that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like she had a whole list of all these things she wanted. And I was like, hey, Ivy, remember how much fun we had at Disney? And she was like, yeah, it was so fun. And I'm like, don't you want to go again? Because I'm really excited to go again. And she was like, absolutely. And I'm like, okay, so if we want to go again, we have to put like money towards that and save towards that. So, we have a certain amount of money. If we're putting it on, like if we're just buying the candies or the little things, then we can't put the money aside for that. So it's like, it's a decision, and explaining it to them that way. You're right. Like it's just choices. And, oh, okay, I'd rather go to Disney because that was super fun than get that, like just that candy that is going to run out and
that'll be gone, that you'll completely forget about. You'll have no memory. Like nobody has any memory of all the candy they've eaten in their life,
yes,
right?
no, but Disney is a lot more fun. So it's so fun, like to have these conversations, and you're right. Like the mindset piece, we pick it up in money beliefs. And I talk about this in my book, Make Money Your Thing, at the beginning. The first chapter is devoted to talking about money beliefs because they're so powerful, and they're just on replay in your head, and you realize they're probably not even yours. Like, yeah, like when you actually listen to it, you're like, I sound like my mother or my father or whoever it is that you picked it up from. But I was realizing that myself. And so in the book, I give an activity of just writing down, like, what are those beliefs you have about money? Just like really anything that comes up. Like you said, money is the root of all evil. We never have enough. Whatever it is, write it down. And then I ask the reader to like actually look at this and question, is this true? And is it like true in a way of like, we could go have a debate and win kind of true? And I would say most of the time it's not, right? It's just beliefs we picked up. So then you get to decide, what beliefs do I want to have? What do I consciously choose? And that's where the fun part comes in, because it can be really inspiring beliefs of like, I'm saving up for a dream vacation for my family, or I am abundant and I'm constantly, growing my net worth or my wealth, and whatever it looks like, whatever feels right for you, have that be the conscious belief. And then that is so powerful if you have children, and that can set the stage. So if you find yourself saying things about money, again, that are kind of programmed, if you can do something like that, and it's going to be so powerful for your children, to not set them up with these, like, so even if you don't feel like you're ready to teach them about investing 101 or something like that, if you can just get them set up with the right mindset, that is so powerful.
And to be frank, it doesn't even have to be parents.
No, teachers, friends. Yeah. Any little, like
everyone.
Yeah.
Even if you have no interaction with children whatsoever, you probably are still saying the same things that you heard as a kid.
Yeah. Yeah. On
completely
repeat.
unaware.
Exactly.
Completely unaware of it. So I think this is such a good discussion. And I know I wanted to talk more about the books a little bit, but I love where this conversation had ended up going, which is just wonderful. As we're kind of wrapping up on time, I would love for you to share where the listeners can buy the books and how they can reach out to work with you.
Absolutely. So the books are all, you can go online. And so Amazon obviously is the big one where you can easily buy online, or some of the other online platforms like Barnes and Noble, Target. In Canada, it's in some of the Chapters Indigo locations, physical locations, but probably online's the easiest way. And then to reach out to me, you can go to my website. So it's just my first name, last name.com. So KaleeBoisvert.com. And there's a contact form on there. So any, burning money questions you have, or even like comments or money wins or anything like that, I love to hear from people. So reach out anytime. And there's also links for where you can buy the book on there as well.
And you're active on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So that's a great place to connect as well. And I also just want to make sure that we clarify for the listeners that you were licensed both in Canada and the US.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So I work with people in both countries.
And for the listeners that are international and global in other places other than North America, the books are there.
Yes, you can still get the book. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been such a great conversation. I really, really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, listeners, for being here. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to like and subscribe and share it with your audience so we can continue to bring amazing guests like this one to you. If there's a topic, a person, a subject, something that you're curious about, reach out. I'd love to be able to find that perfect guest for you. Until next time, everyone, have a good day.